to Undercomplicating Stuff, where we, two psychologists and coaches with over 40 years of combined experience, share our insights to help undercomplicate important topics. A friendly reminder that this video is meant for conversational and entertainment purposes only. Please see the information section of this video for additional resources. Dr. Gedeon, introduce yourself.
Thanks, Julie. I'm Stacey Gedeon. I'm a health psychologist and the founder and CEO of a healthcare consulting and professional coaching business. And how about you, Dr. Radico?
I'm Julie Radico. I'm a psychologist, a coach, an author, and a speaker. And our question for today is, what does coaching, like a coaching session, what does that actually look like? I love this question because I found that talking to potential clients or even just talking to people who are like, oh, you do coaching, like, what is that? There, there's some gray in what coaching actually is. And I'm mindful as I say this, my lens is thinking about coaching and what a coaching session might look like based on the ICF, so the International Coaching Federation. And that client that you're working with, they are the expert in the room rather than the coach being the expert. And I'm curious, Stacey, like how might you help people understand the differences between like what coaching is and what, say, like consulting or mentoring is?
There are some guidelines that you can follow that will help you differentiate and also determine what do you need?
Mm.
Do you need coaching? Do you need mentoring? Do you need a consultant? And so let's just take a common example. Let's say there's a healthcare clinic and the leader is having problems with team morale. If I'm serving as a consultant, I might say something like, well, what about having more work meetings, more one-on-ones? Have you figured out exactly what the problem is? And is it a couple of people? Is it the dynamic? Do you need to improve communication? So I'm problem solving. I'm,
Mm.
I'm the expert and I'm giving suggestions of what I think could be helpful. Instead, if I'm a coach, I might ask questions like, well, what have you noticed about how your team responds to challenges? Or what would success look like if morale was improved? And so it's really geared for the person, the client, to use their resources, use their strengths, their knowledge, their wisdom, their values, and help them come up with some answers for themselves versus us as coaches telling them what to do.
Coaching, the client is the expert in the room and the coach is helping them. Whereas, like a mentor, a therapist to some extent, a consultant, they're the expert in the room and the client is learning from them. There's work out there in the coaching space that talks about coach the person, not the
Mhm.
problem. So whereas like a consultant might come in and be like, okay, you have this problem. So in your example, you're identifying there's a problem. Let's problem solve. Let's figure out around it. The coach is going to meet that client where they're at to say, you likely have the skills to manage this, to deal with this. So I'm going to help you reflect on your own expertise by asking, as you're saying, Stacey, like these open-ended questions, by maybe bringing up metaphors related to what they're hearing, reflecting and empathizing and doing deep listening for that client is going to give that client hopefully the space that they need to be like, oh yeah, I do notice this is how my team reacts, and I can recall when they reacted differently to a different issue that we were dealing with, that they responded really well, and I want to pull out the pieces of that that I know my team will resonate with. As the coach, asking those open-ended questions and being supportive and reflecting and listening, that helps that client figure that out all by themselves. Whereas, like a mentor might come in and be like, well, when I was working with my team, we
Mhm.
did this and this is what helped us. There's room for that. And as we're talking about this, like there's room for all of these things. Like there consultants do great important things. We both consult. Like it's a helpful thing to do. We both also do therapy. We both also coach. Like I think that demonstrates that there's room for all of these and they serve different purposes and different capacities. I worked with a ton of amazing mentees and I would ask questions of my mentees that might be similar to coaching questions at times, but then also I'm going to be like, oh man, I see you spinning your wheels in a way that I did too before, and I'm not going to do that as your coach unless you ask me to. Or there's a moment in coaching where the coach is going to ask you maybe for permission
Mhm.
to put on a consulting hat, to put on a mentoring hat, to switch gears, to say, would it be okay if I offered you some of the tools that I'm aware of out there, and then taking that consulting, that mentoring, like taking it back off to step back into, okay, now that you know that they're aware of those things, they're gonna think about what they want to do with them. You're not saying, okay, well now you go set this goal where you're doing this X, Y, and Z. Like a coach is there to reflect and listen and support as that client. They're going to decide what feels healthiest for them.
Hearing the word coaching, I think a lot of people think of Little League, and a coach is really serving like a mentor or a
Mm.
consultant. They're
Hmm.
telling you what to do, they're telling you how to improve, they're giving you those skills and exercises and drills and all of these other things. And professional coaching, or what we're talking about in terms of coaching, is a little bit different. So we can understand where people might get a little bit confused.
Ah.
The other thing is, if you're considering coaching or consulting or mentoring, really thinking about what it is that you're looking for.
Mm.
And if I'm looking for something, I want the nuts and bolts of how to do something. So I personally have a business mentor, and I was very specific in seeking that out in the wording, because what I was wanting was some business acumen and some other ideas generated, asking this person to come up with some answers for me. And luckily, they also coach me as well, but it's more heavily mentorship. If
Mm.
you're wanting a coach and you're being told what to do and how to do it without you asking or without them having permission, you may just want to have a conversation again and realign. And
Yeah.
the idea with coaching, it's the metaphor of, teaching somebody to fish. If we
Mm.
can help you to identify and realize your strengths and all the things that you can bring to any issue that you are experiencing personally, professionally, you take that with you.
Mm.
And it's not something that you're constantly having to rely on someone else to solve for you.
Yeah, I think it echoes coaching is different from therapy. And we've even talked about that at times in past videos. There are similar takeaways and similar to like mentoring and consulting in ways, but like the goal is really for you to be building up your toolbox so that you eventually can become your own coach. It might be hard for you to become your own consultant because there's going to be a new realm of something that you don't know. But the ability to ask yourself open-ended questions, to think deeply, to reflect, to pull outside of yourself and to like see what's actually happening around you in patterns and like those skills are hopefully what you're taking away from coaching. And I'm mindful as we're talking about this, it might still feel gray to people of like, well, how do I know? And the tough part is that you won't know what that person specifically. So, Stacey, as you're saying, you have a wonderful mentor. They do a bit of coaching. That's their style. So you might have a coach that does pull in a lot of consulting. They put on that hat and they're happy to do so. The best way to find that out is in like a goodness of fit, kind
Mhm.
of like a pre-call, like a 20-minute, 30-minute, having time to ask that person before you're engaging in the work, what will our work together look like? If I asking them something like, if I have a question where I'm like, I really want your thoughts or opinion or your guidance on this, would that be okay? There's merit in having a clear outline of like, this is what coaching is, this is what you can expect. And that's what we're hoping to do here. Like knowing that true, pure coaching is you going into meeting with somebody and they're going to ask you to identify what is it that you're hoping to explore today? They're going to help you define what it would look like if you successfully did that by the end of your time together. And then they're going to ask you lots of open-ended questions about like the importance of the topic, reflecting on like what they're hearing from you, giving some empathy about what it sounds like that might be in your experience, like what's going on for you and how that feels, and then helping you be aware of the insights, all from asking you questions. That that might be the only thing you do with somebody when you work with them through coaching. You also might have somebody who's like, "Oh yeah, I'm happy to do some consulting as well." If you like ask for it in the session, or if I hear something that it sounds like might be helpful, I'm going to ask you for permission to put on that consulting hat. You won't know that until you have a conversation, like have a goodness of fit call. And honestly, there might be a lot of coaches who also do mentoring, who do consulting, who like they could flex those things based on your needs. And maybe that's not their standard, but they're competent and capable and happy to do so. I do want to draw a very quick distinction of if you noticed in that scenario, I didn't throw in therapy. So if you're working with somebody as a therapist, they might pull in questions that sound at times like coaching questions. Great. But if you're working with a coach that also does therapy in their practice, they're going to have clear lines that if you are doing coaching with them, they are never going to be your therapist. They're going to maybe help you find a therapist, but they're not going to switch hats and put on a therapist hat for you. That is like a dangerous sort of like gray area where they're going to be doing you a disservice. Mentoring, consulting, coaching, those can all sort of blend, and you want to have a goodness of fit and figure that out. If you're like, no, I just need therapy, find somebody to do therapy and they're going to stay in that lane.
I am so glad that you brought that up because I think there are some folks that maybe practice as a coach and sometimes don't maybe make that distinction.
Mhm.
So I think it is important for people to keep that in mind and to know when you think you might need therapy in addition to coaching or instead of coaching. It can happen both ways. And I really love how you highlighted that therapists can bring in coaching but coaches aren't bringing in therapy. So that's a
Mhm.
really important distinction.
Yeah.
I also am really glad that you brought up how we can shift gears as coaches as long as we're asking for permission or as long as a client is asking us to, let's say, be a mentor. There's that phrase of unsolicited advice is like an act of aggression.
Mm.
Nobody likes to be told what to do if they didn't really ask for it. And that doesn't tend to promote self-growth. Coaches will often ask questions about self-limiting beliefs and barriers and things that people want to be doing or having years down the road. So to your point earlier of it's present and really future focused. Where do you want to be in 10 years? Okay. How about 5 years? Okay. How about next year? And it really gives you the opportunity to sit down and focus on yourself, which a lot of us don't make the time to do. So it can be incredibly beneficial.
It's doing yourself a kindness. I think there's worth and value in everything we're talking about. And this is my key takeaway. Be thoughtful about what you're looking for because you're going to get value out of coaching. And especially like pure coaching, like ICF style coaching, where it is like you're not putting on a consultant hat or a mentoring hat. Like there's a lot of value in that. There's also separately, like there's value in asking for a mentor. There's value in asking for a consultant. And there's, the separate lane value of finding a good therapist.
Mhm.
Like it's figuring out as you're trying to consider like what do I need? And knowing you can have a coach and a therapist at the same time. They're going to be separate people, but like you can have both of those. They're not mutually exclusive. I could see a scenario where somebody has all four, like a mentor, a coach, a consultant, a therapist that they're working with,
Sure.
all on different needs. And so being really clear about what are you looking to gain from your work with this professional? And then figuring out, well, who seems to be the right fit in what they could offer in their professional capacity. And then having a conversation with that like if I was like, yep, I need a coach and I'm looking for people and I see Dr. Gedeon, I'm gonna be like, oh, well, let me have a conversation. I see I can schedule on her calendar and
Mhm.
get a sense of like, how does she work? What's her style? I'm going to express what I'm hoping to get out of it. And so she can kindly and clearly say, yeah, that's in my scope of practice. That is something I'm comfortable and competent to do. Or she might say, Yeah, I think that's a really great thing that you're looking for support on. I have a colleague that is going to be like my recommendation to you. So you doing some good thought to figure out who might I want to work with, and then looking for people and having conversations to figure out how they work, what their style is, and if that's going to meet your
It's
needs.
not uncommon that people will have these consultation meetings or connection calls
Mhm.
with potential coaches and have several of them. And
Mm,
coaches are used to that. So you're not going to
yeah.
offend anybody if you meet with them and say, okay, well, I'm going to also meet with three other people and find out who's the best fit. That's what we want for you.
Mhm.
Then my takeaway is coaching presumes that you are not in need of fixing. You're not
Mm.
struggling with mental health issues. You're not broken. You are a whole person, and you are focusing on primarily the future and how to add and grow to your life in ways that are most helpful and productive for you. And so that would be my takeaway.
Yeah, it's a fantastic point. Coaching and the ICF, they encourage people to consider that if you're looking for coaching, here's the scale of like ADLs, like your daily living kinds of things. Your 0 to 10. 10 is you're like a superstar at taking care of yourself, and 0 is like you really, really, really need support. If you're looking for coaching, you're functioning pretty high on that scale. There's no perfect number, but like you're over the midpoint. If you are looking for therapy, a signal might be that you're like, oh, it's harder to take care of myself on a daily basis. Like, I find it hard to feed myself or get out of bed or find motivation to do the things I need to do. So like coaching as one another way to add to your point, like is to think about where are you on that taking
Mm.
care of yourself scale? If you're functioning pretty well, but you really do want support for talking about what's going to help you as you move toward the future in an insightful, thoughtful, purposeful way. Coaching is a great, great tool that you have access to. So, if this topic resonated with you, please share it with somebody that you care about. Also, please like, comment, and subscribe. You can message us on YouTube or LinkedIn with suggestions of questions that you'd like us to discuss in future episodes.